All right, and let's then go to this. A statement by a group calling themselves Concerned Advocates has come out in defense of Advocate Mahlape Sello. Advocate Sello was part of the Section 89 panel that penned the report on the Phala Phala saga. She came under attack after it emerged that she had previously represented suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. Some say this raises questions about whether or not she should have stepped down from the panel. At the same time, the Advocates for Transformation has also come out in Advocate Sello's defense, and will, of course, talk to now Advocates for Transformation's Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, who joins us live now. Advocate Ngcukaitobi, thank you so much for your time this evening. I wonder, what are your thoughts first, before we even get into Advocate Mahlape Sello, about your thoughts on the President deciding to take this report on review?
No, I have no thoughts at all.
All right.
I keep it to myself.
I suspected so. I suspected so. Let's go to the matter at hand. I mean, I was reading your statement as well as a statement of the Concerned Advocates. The Concerned Advocates saying that they've rejected the attacks on Advocate Mahlape Sello. How do you then react to that? Because there's been quite a lot of talk about this in the public domain.
I have not seen the statement from the I think you call Concerned Advocates, so I don't know who they are. I'm only speaking on behalf of the Advocates for Transformation.
It's actually Vuyani Galwana, Dalimbofu, Moses Kakane, Griffiths, Matonsela, Menzies Melane, among others. And they say that for them, these particular attacks are unwarranted on Advocate Mahlape Sello, and they view them as cruel, gratuitous, and also they're saying that they somehow are well orchestrated to an undeserving individual.
Yeah, I'm not sure. As I say, I haven't seen them. What I can tell you is the view of the Advocates for Transformation. Our own view is that this criticism is founded on a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of an advocate in society. It is based on a conflation of an advocate with the interests of his client. And that is why we have rejected the imputation of improper conduct on the part of Advocate Sello.
And perhaps let's talk about, that role of the advocate, because other people are wondering here to say that if she takes on this particular brief, then she is almost beholden then to that particular client. For someone watching tonight, let's clarify for them then.
Yes, thank you. That's a useful point to start. So an advocate usually acts on brief from a client, and there is an attorney that brings the brief to the advocate. But an advocate is also expected to act independently of the client. So an advocate becomes an advocate for a case, a legal case of the client. They don't become a spokesperson to articulate or convey the political views of the client. And in fact, and many people don't understand this in society. In fact, an advocate's primary obligation is to the court. So if an advocate is told a version that he or she can see is false, they are under a duty not to express or pursue a false version before a court. They are under an overriding duty not to mislead a court. And sometimes that may be contrary to the instructions of their client. And when instances like that happen, an advocate may consider withdrawing from a case. And that's all based on this idea that an advocate must be independent from the cause of the client. And an advocate's primary obligation is towards a court. That's rule number one. The second rule that is absolutely vital on this is what is called the cab rank, which is a rule that we inherited from England. In fact, the profession of advocates itself is an English phenomenon, and that is how it came to South Africa. What that rule is about is that it says an advocate must take a case when A, they are available, and B, the client undertakes to pay them a reasonable fee. That is also a crucial part of the legal system because it enables each and everyone regardless of their background, regardless of their political views, to have access to a lawyer. So advocates do not choose who they act for. They do not choose based on the financial position of the client or based on the political views of the client. They are under an obligation to act for everyone. And there's a third rule that is important. An advocate may refuse to act in a matter, but that is in limited circumstances where, because they were involved in one type of litigation, they then became exposed to information that may cause embarrassment or bring the profession into disrepute. Outside of those constrained or limited circumstances, advocates should make their services generally available to any client with any kind of a dispute that can be resolved by application of law, provided that the advocate has the time for it and provided that the client undertakes to pay a reasonable fee.
So, listening then to what you're saying is that an advocate cannot then be associated with the cause of their client. So I suppose then you would agree that Advocate Sello was well within her rights to accept this particular brief.
Yeah, that is what we've said in our statement. What we understand the facts to have been is that Advocate Sello was instructed by Mr. Ace Magashule. When Mr. Magashule had a dispute with the ANC pertaining to his suspension or as a result of his failure to step aside. That case was finalized when the Constitutional Court refused leave to appear. So it was over and done with. Months after the Ace Magashule case was concluded, Advocate Sello then was approached by the Speaker of Parliament through the State Attorney to accept a different brief, which was the brief to serve as a member of the panel in terms of Section 89 of the Constitution, to consider whether or not there was sufficient evidence to initiate impeachment proceedings against the president. She then accepted that brief. From what we can tell, there was no information that she got to know in the Mr. Magashule case that would have caused her embarrassment. Number two, from what we can tell, the two cases are completely unrelated. The only thing that vaguely connects them is that both of them involve politicians. And it is perceived by some people that those two politicians are in some sort of a conflict with each other, following what is perceived to be internal ANC conflicts. And number three, from what we can work out, Advocate Sello discharged her mandate lawfully and in accordance with her obligation as an advocate. That does not mean that there is no room to criticize the report. The report will obviously in due course be addressed in court. What it does mean is that if you have a dispute pertaining to the merits of the report, you should not attack the writer of the report. You should attack the report itself.
And Advocate Ngcukaitobi, as we wrap up then, I'm listening to what you're saying then. For someone tonight who is wondering that given, you know, the circumstances here, as you say, that others were trying to make these matters related because these are two people from, you know, one political party, and of course others saying they're not seeing eye to eye and all of that. Then when you consider all these facts, is there any bearing at all that could impact the work that she was doing in Parliament? Or as you say, there's absolutely no bearing here at all?
As a matter of law, there's no connection between the two whatsoever. It might be that as a matter of some kind of political perception that people will draw the connection. But that's precisely why the Advocates for Transformation has issued the statement in which it condemns the suggestion and the innuendo that somehow she would have approached her work as a member of the panel in a biased fashion because she had previously acted for a different client in proceedings that are completely unrelated. So speaking purely as a lawyer, the two have got no connection. And from what we can gather, There is not even a suggestion that has been made that somehow she was biased. And one must remember that this was a committee of 3. We know nothing about how decisions were arrived at within that committee. We know nothing about what her role was within that committee. And all we can tell from where we stand is that she actually acted perfectly honestly and perfectly legitimately.
All right, Advocate Ngcukaitobi, thank you so much for your time. Do appreciate it this evening. That was a member of Advocates for Transformation, Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi.